Let's see. We have a short agenda after our reports today. Let's see. We have one communication. The CAC thanks us for supporting their second annual Autumn Arbor Day, and all of you who came out for it. So let's get right to department reports. I see Nick there. I'm assuming that's Nick Pirro. Is that you, Nick?
Yeah. Hey, Tom.
Oh, okay. Your report, please.
All right. So for the month of September, we had 48 calls for service. And so far for the year, up until today, we've responded to 381 calls for service this year. So we're on track to be pretty high again, probably close to 450, between 450 and 500 calls for the year, we've been averaging about 435 for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's where we're at. Just an update. I know we spoke with the BEA. One of our trucks is out of service for an extended period of time due to parts. The radiator cracked and we cannot get a radiator. We were told 3 months, and that was a couple of weeks ago. So that's where we're at with that. So we might not get that back until December, January at this point. Everything else is going good, and that's where we're at.
Any progress on selling the old engine?
What was that, Tom? I'm sorry.
Any progress on selling the old truck?
No, it's listed. Still, I think with just one company Tim has it with. I think we might have just went down a little bit to try to garner some more interest in it, but it's still listed and we're hoping it goes soon.
Okay, any questions from council members?
It's teasing Liz and saying, let's give the truck to the youth department, right?
Did
That'll get you volunteers.
No, why would you?
We definitely have fun needs for it.
you hear that, Nick?
Nick, you want to give the truck to the youth department?
That's a negative. I don't know if they've had much. They would have much use for a ladder truck.
I know, but it would really help with recruiting volunteers. And think about it. That's how you get members early.
We're only 2 blocks away. Every Tuesday night they can come out. We use all the volunteers we can use.
Any other questions from the council members? No. The public have any questions? Okay, thank you, Nick.
Nick's done at 6:05 p.m.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, next up is where's York, who is here in who's present?
I think I had to get close last time to be heard. So.
Yes, please come very close. Closer.
Okay. All right. So here's my October report. I'm just gonna kind of right here. So we've been going for a while with youth center programs. Since our last meeting, our attendance has almost doubled. We had, I think, about 45 kids at yesterday afternoon for after school program. I didn't get the number today, but that is steadily increasing. We're getting new signups every week, so that's always exciting. We're still doing our programmings with Vindle Stiff Circus. Some other programs are coming in, and we just started doing boxing. We did that yesterday, actually, and the kids really enjoyed it. With Todd, yeah, it was really nice to have him in there, have him come back, work with the kids. A lot of the kids were really excited to see him, so it was really fun. So there's some photos of that. We did all age groups got to go up there and work with him, and we're excited to continue to work with him and see how we can develop that program. We are also continuing to do fall soccer. It's been going well. Participation again has increased each week as we go on. People just kind of see us and will come sign up, which is nice. It's a skills and drills program again, so we can continue to take people for the rest of the program. We got 3 more weeks, so if a kid shows up this week, next week, it's still okay to sign up. They'll still get something out of it. And our coaches are really loving it, and hopefully we have enough interest next year to build past skills and drills. 5 to 12, 13, yeah. So, yeah, and they're really enjoying that, and there's some photos of that. We did have to cancel it this weekend because of some pesticides on the field. There's a little lapse in communication, but other than that, we've been working really well with Greenport. They've been taking care of the field and having it ready for us every week, so that's been a really great partnership. Next slide, there's not so many pictures. Sorry, I'm going really fast. Oh, that didn't show. Okay, great. So community engagement. On Saturday, November 5th, from 1 to 4, we're going to have an open house at the youth center on 3rd Street. Our staff is going to be there so that we can meet parents, meet community members, have people learn a little bit more about who we are as individuals and what we're doing at the center. We're also going to have our programmers there so that they can demonstrate what they're doing with the kids. Hopefully get some more kids signed up. One specific thing I'm really excited about is Rebecca Bohr is going to be there. She works with us. She's worked with us for a long time as a programmer. And she's going to be screening some short films that she and the kids actually made together. So they made them last year at summer camp and then this year at summer camp, and we haven't had a chance to show them yet. They're actually really fun. The kids did a lot of really hard work and they're really cool. So we'll be doing a couple of showings of that. And we'll have specific times when we send out our promotional information. We're also going to have a food truck there. So there's going to be free food and other activities. And we're also going to be working on YDBL registration, or East Department Basketball League. We're definitely bringing that back this year. We're not sure to what extent it's going to be. It might just be skills and drills. We're hopefully going to get back to a full league. Whether or not that's this year or next year, we're not quite sure. So we'll see what signups look like and what we can get going. And you're all invited to the open house. So I'll remind you guys, I'll send flyers out when it gets closer and hopefully we'll see you there. Some other community engagement we've been doing is the Parents Advisory Board at the Youth Center had their first family movie night. We had about 20 kids show up. It's actually movie day. It's like in the middle of the day. They show up and watch a movie. It was really cute. We gave out some popcorn. I forgot to put in the date because I wasn't sure of it. It's the last Saturday of every month. They'll be there. So they'll do it again on October 29th, I believe, is the last Saturday of this month. That's pretty close to Halloween. Just putting out there with all the stuff that the city already offers for Halloween. We aren't doing anything specific at the youth center, but we are going to share all the information about the trick-or-treating, the parade, and all that with our families. And we're going to offer to escort some of the kids if families need that, and hopefully we'll get some kids out for that. But we're not going to do anything special, but we're not going to take away from what's already happening. We're just going to join in on the fun. Let's do this. I did. Oakdale updates. We'll be doing our final rewilding event on November 12th, starting at 10 a.m. We'll be doing one last push of invasive species removal for the season. We'll be tidying things up for the winter season, kind of shutting down those flower beds, getting them ready for the spring. We might be planting some bulbs and wildflowers. We'll probably do some litter pickup because it always needs to be done in the park. So again, that's November 12th at 10 a.m. I believe that the rain date is the Sunday after, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll share that flyer with you guys. And again, I want to take the opportunity to thank Friends of Oakdale Lake and all the volunteers for making these events possible and for putting so much care and time into the natural resources provided by Oakdale Park. You can really see the differences that they're making, and I hope to be able to continue to support these projects with them for a long time. And the last thing I have is, you don't have it in front of you because it's going to be at the next meeting, but I'm going to give a resolution to transfer funds within the department to Tom for you guys to vote on. We have some extra money in the personnel line because we had so many positions open for so long, and I'd like to transfer that to the Oakdale equipment line so that we can get a truck for over at Oakdale. I know they used to have one. Right now, we kind of wait for our bigger projects. We have to wait for DPW to be available or try and do it on our own. For a while, we were taking the seats out of the van and putting them back in. Turns out that's a lot more difficult than we thought, so it just makes a lot of sense. We don't want to put trash in those vehicles. We could try the fire truck. That ladder might get in the way though. But yeah, so we think that with all the forward progress Oakdale is making to continue doing these projects efficiently and to maintain the projects that have already been started, that a truck would make those more manageable. So that's our hope for that. And that's all I have.
Any questions from council members? Vicky?
So CAC was talking about having a separate department for parks.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if they do that, then, or if we do that, it would be good to have.
Yeah,
Would they be, if another park in Hudson needs a vehicle, would you lend it to them? I don't know how it works.
I think it needs to be driven by a city employee, and I wouldn't be opposed to helping support
Yeah,
this, but,
city
yeah,
employee,
if, you know, if there's a parks department that does
I
come
mean,
into
you,
fruition.
Oakdale may go under the category.
Right, so if there's
So
a,
then it's,
yeah.
then it will be, if it doesn't, if we don't get the department,
yeah,
I'm just saying, as long as there's cooperation with other parks, like if 7th Street Park needs something and DPW is busy, you know, it'd be nice to have
definitely
that.
open to it for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. And so the pickup truck will be used or new or?
So right now, we're actually working with DPW. They're helping us to look. There's, and I might get this wrong, so Tom can correct me, but I believe it's a state bid lot where state bids have already been put in and the
Mhm.
vehicles have already been purchased, so we can, or, you know, bid for, so we can purchase it through them rather than putting out for our own bids. And so we're examining that right now. We're not getting anything big. We don't need like a double cab.
Yeah,
extra.
exactly,
It's just
yeah.
nice.
No, you
small
definitely
pickup truck, so.
45 kids is a great amount, by
Yeah.
the way. What is the maximum with park you're going to take?
We don't really have, I mean, in the building, I think it's something like you could have up to 300 people. Obviously, that wouldn't be safe
Yeah.
or manageable, but we have it set up where I think we could manage 60 kids if we needed to. We've got staff set up so that we have, you know, we've got a few separate rooms. It is difficult. We'd love to facilitate more than that. We'd love to do team programming and youth programming right after school together, but we just can't with the space we have. So I think 60 would probably be the max. And that's utilizing all spaces, having kids up in the gym, in the academic space. We've got like a multimedia space, a computer room. So we'd have to be very intentional with where they're doing programming, but I think we could manage.
You're
really
doing
60,
great.
so.
Thank you. Well
Thank you.
done.
Anyone else? Alan?
How much would the truck cost, Miss?
I don't know yet. We're looking at it being probably a new truck, just because with the way trucks are right now, used is just as expensive as new, so we might as well get new. So I think that there's like a 35 to 45 range, 35 to 45,000 range.
Is there, because it's gonna be a new vehicle, I think, so is there currently a policy on, mileage log, the use of the vehicle? Because another thing is, I noticed, my understanding is that a lot of the young drivers, how old do you get it to drive one of your vehicles?
I think it's 18, but currently we only have 4 of our staff that are approved to drive right now. And that's
And-
myself, Calvin, or 5. That's most of the full-time employees who are all above 21.
Right, so, yeah, I mean, my word is, yeah, you have to be 21 because insurance, yeah, so anyone driving any of your vehicles currently, they're 20, now do they, again, passenger logs and things like that?
We have a vehicle log that we do for like filling up gas, checking to make sure that we got the right equipment, that kind of stuff. So
But if they
we're
do an
also
outing,
just-
they don't, for liability, say somebody, get hurt or whatever, and then who's in the vehicle and things like that, there's no.
When we do outings, we take a list of all the kids and their emergency contacts, and so we have all that with us separately from that, so we can bring them to whatever event we're doing.
Mhm. And then I've been trying to reach out and just about, with the, bike program, is that something that you still want to do, or? 'cause
Yeah, I got a
Cowork's
message
looking-
to call you, and then I
Yeah.
didn't have your number, so I was gonna ask you for it today.
Because Cowork's looking for their
What program? Alan?
Cowork donated 30 bicycles and
Bike program.
a
Bike
bike
program.
safety program. It's an actual, it was called Safety Town. I did it when I was in Cowork and they had no use for it. And it's actually a safety town. You put up this town, stop signs, working stoplights and bikes, and the kids get to go through and learn about safety and it was a really successful program. So Cowork donated to the youth department and, maybe it'd be great, a couple times a year to put it right in the what is it, the rink where it's safe. And that's where I did it it was, turn the lights on, you could do it at nighttime, and it was a really really good program. We had the rescue squad there to do help, learn about injuries, bike injuries. And now with the bike co-op, the mechanics can do something with the working, fixing the bikes, everything. But I went there one day to see you too, but I think you might have left already. I want to get there this week so we can try to go through it and so Cora can grab the trailer back.
Yeah.
That works for you.
This week, yeah.
Now, I'm
In
sorry.
the morning, yeah.
So you said there is a written policy about the trucks?
There's not a written policy. We have a binder that's got like, this is the checklist of what you need to do. We actually are currently, because other programs I've worked at, we've had a driver training program where you have to like go through all the things.
Especially if they're
watch
not-
someone drive, then be
Yeah,
shadow
yeah.
driving. So we are going to implement a more rigorous driver training.
Especially,
program, so,
you know, where that pays off is when there's an accident. That's
Yeah.
when they're looking for the training.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone from the public, questions? Okay, Liz, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Next up, Heather, are you there? Let me see. There you are.
I'm here.
Okay.
So am I sharing my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Is that good for everybody?
A little bit larger, maybe?
Sure.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. So this one's going to be a little different, and I'm going to look for guidance from you, Tom, as well as the other members of the council in terms of how much detail you might want me to go through, because what I've included in this month's agenda is our actual final AUD, which is the annual update document that we file with New York State. I obviously didn't include the entire AUD because it's about an inch thick. But what I did do is pull out the pages that speak directly to the general fund performance in 2021, and I thought we would go through that. That's kind of the first section there. I'm just going to go through the regular numbers that we go through, and then we can go through the AUD top line a little bit if that works for everybody. Okay, so parking revenues, we're getting back in line. We're 75% through the year, and we're at 84% versus budget and 71, so getting close to 75. Pardon me, sorry. We saw a nice uptick in the Front Street lot. And also we discovered that one of the issues that we've been talking about for several months, aside from, issues like meters that need repair and so forth, is that the parking bureau is in the middle of a conversion because the software company that we had been using moved to a different technology, and they've been working on that migration. And so part of the reason we think that parking tickets has been a little lower than usual is because there's a backlog with the parking bureau. And actually Tracy Delaney actually sent an email maybe a week or two ago indicating that the monthly rate had increased because they're now starting to get caught up with the backlog. So my sense is that this is not a long-term issue. This is just an issue of timing, and hopefully we'll be able to get the majority of the backlog in before the end of the fiscal year. That's pretty much it. Building and plumbing permits, same story as before. We're above budget, which is great, and probably anticipate that number to continue. September, October are good building months generally before weather hits. And this just shows you versus year to date 2021 versus 2022. So you can see we're ahead of where we were through September of last year. So that's great. There's actually nothing new on the sales and mortgage and lodging tax revenues, but I'm just leaving it here as a placeholder. As a reminder, we have 2 more sales tax checks coming in from the county. We should get one probably sometime this month, if not early November. So hopefully we'll have that number before the next meeting. We don't get the 4th one until January, February of next year, and it gets charged back. So we won't know that true number until, you know, February or March of 2023. But so far, as we've mentioned before, we did get some communication from the county indicating that they thought that the sales tax distribution was going to be more conservative than it's been the past few years. But we made a relatively conservative estimate in the budget. So I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to make that, but I'm not necessarily sure we're going to blow it away like we've done the past year or so. Yeah, mortgage tax, we've talked about this already. We get 2 payments, so we're waiting for the outstanding second payment of that. We do get that before the end of the fiscal year, so we will know that number, the true number, before the end of the fiscal year. And lodging tax, I anticipate this number to go up quite a bit because of our staffing issues. We've been a little behind on that particular reconciliation. I'm going to guess right now that it's going to be closer to, at this point in time, I think it's probably closer to 400,000 than it is to 254. I've started working on the reconciliations. I'm up through, April. So by the next meeting, for sure, we will have that all updated and we'll know what a good number is through the end of November, through the end of October for the November meeting. So unless anybody has any questions on that, I'm just going to go straight into the overview.
Any questions, council members?
Heather, why the Front Street municipal lot is such a difference, 21 to 22?
It really died off during the pandemic.
People were staying.
So what was 2019? You don't know, right?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can get you that information tomorrow. But the people who just spoke are absolutely right. It took a big nosedive in 2020. And so looking at it year to year, you have to take that into account. I can probably modify this to add 2019 for the next meeting. So we'll have that as a basis of record, but it's getting pretty close to where it used to be before COVID hit.
Good news, yes. We weren't sure if we were going to come back.
Yeah, we weren't sure at all because so many people were, working from home and people were shutting down their offices in Manhattan, but it seems like it's still happening. We don't know if those are people working in the city or if those are weekenders who want to come up and have their car here, but.
Big venue. People get married.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to skip reviewing the balance sheet unless somebody really wants me to. I'm happy to do it next month, or I'm happy to do it tonight if you like. But obviously explaining the balance sheet is a little more complicated than explaining the profit and loss statement of how we did in terms of our revenues versus our expenditures in 2021. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. But also, obviously you have this material, so anybody that wants to reach out, if you have questions about any of this, please feel free. We can either set up a time to talk, or, if there's multiple people that want to go into more detail, I'm happy to set up some time for a more in-depth review on this. So this is the balance sheet. Okay. So I'm just going to minimize this so I can see the whole thing. Okay. So this is how we report it. This is going to look a little different from what you're used to seeing in the budget documents, because the way that we're required to code it and classify it for the state is slightly different from the way that we look at it from a budgetary standpoint. But all the elements are there. It's just where they get rolled up into. So property taxes, we came in at 5.3 million. Which was about 150,000 less than we anticipated. That's solely because of the way that we are required to going back to the balance sheet, the way that we are required to handle outstanding taxes receivable. So there's a variable every year. Sometimes it's a positive, sometimes it's a negative. And in this case, it just happened to go down a little bit, and that's what offset that. Real property tax items, those are things like gain from sale of property. The pilot distributions are all in here, title search and serving fees and so forth. This came in about 200,000 less than what was budgeted, but for two important reasons. One is that we did have $150,000 budgeted for the anticipated sale of a property on which the city foreclosed. Unfortunately, as soon as we foreclosed on the property, first the owner filed for bankruptcy after the fact, but they did it within what's called the stay period. So it was allowed. He did default on that. So once again, we had the opportunity to actually, turn the property around and sell it, and then COVID hit, and then we had eviction issues. So you're going to see that so we didn't recognize that revenue in 2021. We're not going to recognize it in 2022 probably, but we will definitely recognize it, if not in 2022 and 2023. We've already started the process of taking the property back over. The other major difference in this area is that for budgetary purposes, we need to forecast all of the pilot income as revenue, and then to offset it, for pilots or payment in lieu of taxes. And what the city does is it collects these pilot payments, but then we have to turn around and pay a portion of that out to the school district and out to the county because they're part of this overall taxing jurisdiction. So from a budgetary standpoint, we have to recognize all of the revenue in revenue, and then we have to recognize the expected expenditure of those pilot distributions to the county and the school in expenditures. In reality, though, that revenue was never really our revenue. So at the end of the year, what we do is we basically back out the pilot distributions from the revenue so that meaning the city's pilot revenue, is actually accurate. So that accounts for basically the other half of the loss. And that's just a budgetary mechanism that happens every year. If we go back down to non-property tax items, obviously the two big things here was the sales tax, which is what's listed here as non-property tax distribution. So that's our sales tax distribution from the county. And then the first line item you see is the lodging tax. And both of those came in quite a bit stronger than were budgeted. So that was great. In the departmental income, one of the that basically was pretty much in line with what we were budgeted. The other major things, so obviously interest has been relatively low for the past several years. I think the other major increases, we've talked about building permits, so that falls into this section here in front of you for total licenses and permits, so that helped that number. And then when you get down to the total state aid, the revenue sharing doesn't change, but we did in 2021 have a pretty successful mortgage tax amount. So that was the bulk of the difference there. And then that's basically it from a revenue standpoint. So $12.3 million in revenue. Expenditures, I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on the level of details, but I think the thing that is pretty much the biggest impact is that we budget for CHIPS. And so CHIPS is Consolidated Highway Improvement Program. These are all things that get budgeted in the DPW budget. There's several, there's that, there's now a new one for state touring routes. There's one for Pave New York, and then there's another one, which is like extreme winter storm recovery. Those are neutral in terms of the budget because we budget for the anticipated revenue, assuming the reimbursement of the program, and then we budget for the expenditure. Some years we don't do it at all. Some years we do. Either way, it's a break even. This year is slightly different in that while we booked all the expenditures in 2021, we did not get invoiced by the person that DPW, the firm that DPW hired until January for the revenue. So the revenue is not currently projected in this. In 2021, that's about a $700,000 swing. So obviously now that the AUD is complete, it's going to the auditors, and I'm going to be asking the auditors whether or not I think it's personally a material enough difference to change it. But regardless, the point is that whether we recognize it in 2021, we did get the revenue in 2022 to offset those expenditures. And that's really the biggest difference here. So if we go down and look at our bottom line here in terms of all the revenue, we're at 12.5. So it looks like it's a $200,000 loss, revenues versus expenditures, but it's really not because we have all of the CHIPS expenditures accounted for, but not the offsetting CHIPS revenue. So that's about $600,000 to $700,000 swing in one direction. At the same time, these expenditures don't include all of the encumbrances that are set aside for, expenditures that were committed to in 2021, but aren't going to be paid until 2022. So, arguably the expenditures are understated by that amount, because if we had paid everything that we contracted for in 2021, all the expenditures would be here. That's about a $400,000 swing in the other direction. So what that means is that net, we kind of broke even in 2021 in terms of revenues versus expenditures. And I think given where we started and given COVID and everything, that's pretty good performance. This is just an analysis in the change of fund balance. So you can see at the end of 2020, and this is all different types of fund balance. So this is, your assigned appropriated, your unassigned, and all of those. And you can see we dropped from 4.2 million down to 4.0. That's that $200,000 loss that we're currently seeing in 2021. And that's pretty much it. This is just showing the 2021 versus the 2022 budget for revenues and for expenditures here. And then obviously, as I said, the AUD, which is online on the city website under the treasurer section. I'm also happy to send an electronic version to anybody that's interested in it and wants their own electronic copy. It obviously covers all the other funds in addition to the general fund and goes into much more detail about taxes receivable and debt service and the LoSAP program and all sorts of other fascinating things. So that's what I've got today.
Questions from the council?
Just one question, Heather, curious for when we close out 22, are we line iteming and tracking like an additional line? I know it's different for the state, but for ourselves, the distribution of the ARPA funds to show like where we're kind of standing up any certain departments or elements against what we got for those additional revenues?
Yeah, I'm talking, we're not doing it line item by line item per se. There is a use of ARPA funds revenue line in the budget. And when we do a resolution requesting the use of ARPA funds, it gets put there and it gets put in the expenditure account. At the same time, because we also have to do an annual reporting to the federal government about how we're managing the ARPA funds, I have a separate spreadsheet that just tracks all of the resolutions and other elements where we have committed ARPA funds. So we know what our outstanding balance is at any given time, and we know where the ARPA funds have been assigned.
Okay. Because I mean, that's where it's like, on one hand, I hear like a collective $400,000 surplus on one end, which is awesome. And so it's a question of, for planning for 23 in particular, right? Like if we know that certain departments got certain prop ups that were needed and we were able to do more, how do we get more efficient knowing where departments were able to thrive with the additional funds that are brought in? That's just where my head's at, but you're tracking it. That was my question. So thank you.
Yeah, and the only other thing that I would add is because of the nature of the losses that we had, we're basically allowed to treat the ARPA funds as revenue replacement. So there are not nearly as stringent requirements around how we can use it as there were when they first initially announced the program.
Being incorporated, are we allowed, like in any sort of like tax situation, to write off any of the losses at all that were like force majeure?
Not to my knowledge, no.
If we could do anything like that. All right.
Heather, this is Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
On the screen that you have presented on public safety, 3.6 million versus 4 million. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me just minimize this so I can get back to my screen. Oh, you mean in the budget here?
Yeah. I'm just looking at. I'm trying to look at things where things differed, and that kind of jumped out at me. So I'd like to understand that a little bit more.
I might have to refer back to my previous things, but just to give you a sense, public safety is obviously HPD.
Yeah.
But it's also the parking bureau, and it's also code enforcement.
Okay. You don't need to do it on the fly. If you could just provide me with a little more detail on how we went in 2021 from 3.6 to 4.0. That would be
Nope.
fine.
Yeah, and just making sure you understand that this is actually the proposed, it's the budget that was approved, not the actuals.
Understood.
Okay.
Absolutely understood. Yep.
Yep, I can get that information to you.
Thank you.
So 2021 looked much better than was anticipated. Any other questions from council members?
Thank you, Heather.
Anyone in the public with questions? Okay, Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Chief Moore. Are you with us? There you are. Oh, there you are.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes, you can. Loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Hello. Good evening. Okay, so first up tonight, we have the mayor's report that came out of the police reform, which has us randomly review body cameras for the month, of which month of September we reviewed 99, not 100 for some reason, but that report was documented and sent to the mayor this morning. No documented incidents of misconduct. And that report, while it goes to the mayor, the policy is to send it to the mayor. It's also available if anyone in the council wants to see it. Secondly is the Section 9 reporting that we do monthly. That involves, and I emailed that to everyone on the council. Number of use of force incidents for the month of September was 0. Hence, no duty to intervene incidents. 36 arrests, total of 64 charges. Right on average, I'd say, for that time of year. 12 emotionally disturbed persons calls, and only 1 drug overdose in the city of Hudson for the month of September. Narcan was not administered, and there was no overdose deaths thankfully, for the month. The different charges are also delineated on the report that I showed you. And you can review that at your leisure. As far as criminal activity goes, that's reflected on that report. There were two significant incidents in the month of September. On September 8th, we had two individuals rob a person on North 7th Street at knife point, and those two men were arrested. On September 12th, just a few days later, a person threatened the use of a gun and did a robbery of a female. That man turned out to be a parolee. We arrested him, located him, and transported him back to Buffalo, where he's in jail now. So that was good that we were able to close those cases quickly. We have the quarterly report that came out of the park committee that I'd like to go over with you now. I think that's been emailed to you also. The one that we submitted regarding vehicle and traffic instances, there's the first thing we look at is the breakdown by race. So of the traffic tickets written in the quarter, and the quarter runs from July 1st to September 30th, we saw that the indicators of breakdown by race is that Caucasians received tickets at a rate of 75% of our total tickets, African Americans 14.2%, Asian Pacific Islanders 0.7%, less than 1%, and people identified as other at 10%. So regarding racial profiling, there's no indications of that involving the traffic enforcement. If you attach to the report is the breakdown of what tickets were written and where, and I see that a majority of the tickets were written on Harry Howard for moving violations, speed and zone predominantly. So that report is also available for you to read at your leisure. The other part of the mandated reporting for the 3-month period is breakdown by gender, and we saw that, and that report's there too. We see that over the 3 months, 35 females were issued tickets and 69 males. Again, and that also correlates to the breakdown by race that doesn't show any indication of racial profiling or any other type of profiling. Regarding the month's activity for HPD, on September 7th, we participated in a organizational meeting to set up a active shooter drill. We want our officers trained how to respond cooperatively with the other departments in case of the event of an active shooter at a school. That's being organized by Dave Harrison at Columbia County Emergency Management. So we're happy to participate. It's an important training, especially with everything going on in the world. On September 7th, we started field testing some wireless video cameras we found in crime fighting and making arrests that were reliant a lot on video evidence. So years ago, I presented this over the years since I've been here, and the cost was always prohibitive, upwards of $100,000 to set up a camera system throughout the city. So we've taken a different tact as the technology improves to set up wireless cameras at an add-on, a system that can be added on over the years. So we're field testing a couple surveillance cameras now, and we've made a budget request of $10,000 for 4 cameras to get the program started. Also, we're looking for matching grants from HIDA, which is the high intensity drug trafficking area, which we can tap into some of those funds. And I'll keep you posted on that. On September 21st, Hudson City Court launched its mental health court. They're setting out policies for, obviously we have a problem with homelessness and mentally ill people and with drug dependent, alcohol dependent people. So they're setting up in Hudson City Court an avenue to deflect criminal charges into a treatment program. And we're supportive of that. The two city court judges were supportive of their efforts to try to do something to address the problem. So we had an organizational meeting on that on September 21. And lastly, on September 22nd, we did participate in the parking survey workshop, which is to address issues of parking throughout the city. And that, Tom, that in total is my report for this evening.
Thank you, Chief Moore. Questions from the council? Leo?
Yeah, thanks for the report. I was hoping to just give some more information on the surveillance cameras, about the program, the manufacturer of the camera and the intended placement, and which areas will see this pilot program of the surveillance cameras first.
The company that we're researching is called Vercoda. The history has been, when we were at 427 Warren Street, we had upwards of 10 cameras hardwired into the station. When we made the move to 701 Union Street, there was no money available to convert to fiber hardwired cameras. The technology for wireless cameras was a little bit more expensive back then, and a couple times the program was suggested that it was just cost prohibitive. But now the feeling is if we start light with several cameras that we can use for all sorts of events that can be moved around the city, that's the tack that we would suggest.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Ron?
Yeah, Chief, did all officers get the active shooting training or just?
We're setting up, it's going to be a pretty large drill involving all the police agencies in the county. So there's several organizational meetings to set up the game plan as to how we're going to do it. We've done this in the past. This particular one's going to be at Taconic Hills School, but the reaction, the plan would be similar if something were to happen in the city of Hudson. So it's just a matter of getting the agencies to work together and know how to do the proper response, not to stand around outside the school for 4 or 5 hours. And so that we can train. The more we train, the more it'll become automatic in the event of an incident like that.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Any other council members? Anyone from the public have questions for Chief Moore? Okay, I don't see any hands. Thank you, Chief. One second.
Chief, did anybody get back to you from last month? You made an ask, if I recall, about assistance with boat legislation.
Yeah, I did get contacted by an attorney about it, and there's been no follow-up since. So apparently someone out there is working. I don't remember which attorney it was. One of the city attorneys, but that's my understanding. They're working on that. It's funny you should mention that because we've had a couple more incidences last month with now we have a huge boat in our parking lot that is broken down. So this is something that I would really think we need to maintain access.
Help you with it, and the reason I'm bringing it up now, Chief, is end of season, so it's going to be quicker to be able to get things done so it's ready for the spring.
That's the idea.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, Chief, sorry.
Okay.
How you doing, Chief?
Good. Who's that, Malachi?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's about that time where I asked about the cold blue with the homelessness situation. Is there any indication of when that would take place?
I missed the first part of it. In other words, a program to address the homeless.
Yeah, with the cold blue, with the weather getting pretty cold.
So the county emergency management will put out when the code blue, and then that's when we move in. Generally, they'll set it up at the firehouse. I know there's other locations they've looked at, but that's something that is an annual thing. When it comes up, we'll get it out on our social media and on the city website. And also our officers go at night and look for unsheltered people And we actually had an incident this month. It wasn't because of the cold, it was because of the heavy rain. We located a homeless person. We're able to lodge them at a county facility in the town of Canaan. So we'll work with the county, and with ultimately the state declares a code blue. We'll work with all of them to establish some place for people when it starts to get cold, which will be sooner than later.
Okay. I used to think it was done by date, but I was told that it's done by, just the weather itself, how cold it gets.
Yeah, I forget what it is. Is it 35 degrees overnight? I think is when they start to put out the different warnings. So yeah, we'll be on top of that, and we will put that out there when the time calls for it.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, everybody.
Moving right along, Rob, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Jane, you wanna post?
Okay. All good?
Yep.
Okay. Accepted revenue for August was 44,450. So at this point, we are on pace to meet our revenue forecast for the year. Like I said, it's usually a heavier business in the winter time or the summertime, lower in the winter. So it takes us a couple months to catch up, but we've done that. These are the secondary clarifiers at the sewer plant. They were this is just one tank. It was drained for maintenance, and this is about 15 feet deep. And just to show you the size and magnitude of, really what happens down there, these chains actually pull these little flights. These are little like paddles, and they make a revolution through the tank once every hour and a half or so. They go across the bottom and skim the sludgy stuff that's sank into kind of a collection area where it's returned to the process, and on the top it picks up the things that are floating. So but we do this because you need to, all the gears, the sprockets. It's a pretty significant undertaking, but without this process, we really can't treat and make permit. Sorry, I've been out in the woods all day, so my allergies are killing me. Let's see. So down on Front Street, all the sewer and storm lines, a part of that project, are now installed and online, as well as all the manholes, which are structures. So that portion of construction is complete, and they've begun restoration. We had to remove a foot of the material stone on the top, and as you could see, it goes in several layers. This is one of the first. It's a base coat. There'll be another. Since this was taken, there was probably 6 or 7 inches of binder put down. We are leaving it about 1.5 inches down. We'll mill the edge so that way cars can go in and out over it and drive over it. We want to do that top coat when we finish the next phase, which is the State Street side. And at this point, we're waiting on a hydrodynamic unit, which is basically a separator. It separates pulls the bottles and the floatables and the cigarette butts out of stormwater. So that way we bring a vac truck and remove that without it going into the water bodies directly. And that's been, as many other components and products, been delayed because of the supply issue. And once we have that, which we expect in a couple of weeks, then we can commence with the State Street project, and that should finish sometime in November. Then we'll pave everything all up, and this project will be closed. We have submitted for reimbursement. One of the projects was a CDBG grant from Housing and Community Renewal for $750,000. It was 100% reimbursement. So we've spent $750,000 on this project that's eligible, and that's been submitted. When we get the money, we get the money. Promenade Hill, all the railings have been delivered, so that's no small matter. Now the next phase is to install them. So the holes for the ramps were already pre-drilled, so they went in very nicely. And the holes for the railings on the stairs have to be drilled and cored, which most of those are done. Next, they have to be leveled and shimmed, which basically means they kind of locked in place. and then they're grouted. And grout is a concrete product, so like all other concrete products, it has to cure. You can't just plop it in there today and, you know, have people pulling on the handrails tomorrow because the concrete will actually shatter. It needs to set up for a week or so, which is enough time to get some of the other punch it list items. You know, we're getting the water feature together, the plumbing for that's being assembled. Obviously, you know, this has been one continuing saga after another. So the latest episode is National Grid has given us flack about installing the lights because they can't drive their truck in the park and they want to use the bucket truck. And they're trying to say that because the city is in the NIPA project to convert, which that conversion is going to take place a year from now. There's 18 steps with the Public Service Commission or whatever else. So we're basically just telling them that it's their lights. We have the lease, you know, we lease them. It's their responsibility to install them and to figure it out. We're going to have another meeting with them, but this one's going to get resolved. It may not be pleasant for National Grid, but we're going to resolve this because, you know, we're ready for the park. Going on to water, you know, we've had no shortage of rain in the last month or so. So this is the Forge, where the water level is clearly going over our spillway. So that means maximum supply there. The irony is that this is Copac Lake. And even though they theoretically have received the same amount of water, that rain that we have, precipitation by inches, you know, they're still a half a foot below the spillway. It's kind of hard to tell on this, but that's what that measurement is right there, that line. And, you know, and one of the reasons is our watershed is 55 square miles, and I'm sure the watershed for Copac Lake is, you know, probably a couple of square miles. So it just shows you what difference, you know, the size matters when it comes to watersheds, which, you know, right now we have water coming over our spillway, so we're at maximum capacity. Now to go to the watershed discussion, you know, this discussion comes up every once in a while. You know, there's people that try and, you know.
How can I interrupt you to explain, give you a little background on what you're talking about?
What's that?
Give a little background to what you're referring to.
So there was I guess there was the letter that was received by the mayor and the chairman about somehow with the solar farm in Copac. And so one of the issues that was brought up, someone always mentions a closed landfill in the town of Claverick on Snydertown Road. And the reality is our watershed, we actually have two separate watersheds. So this yellow one that's here, and this is just a portion of it, is the main one. That's 55 square miles. That's in the towns of Claverick and Hillsdale and Copac and Ankrum. And that's what, you know, 95% of our water comes from this watershed, maybe 98%. This little pink watershed is just the watershed for the Churchtown Reservoir, which is right here. And so the amount of water that actually comes naturally into the reservoir is really a small portion. The landfill that people happen to mention from time to time is circled right here. It's this little barren grassy area. And you can clearly see it is not in our watershed. In fact, there's a wetland that's in between this closed dump and our watershed. So the water is fine. We're not getting any runoff contaminants from a closed landfill. Also, going on at the Forge, this was taken back during the drought time, but you can see the rack is pretty well mangled. It's been removed and put in place. It's pretty old and beat up, so we did have a new one fabricated. It's this thing here. It's got the rake sitting on it. That'll be installed tomorrow to replace this old one, and its principal purpose is to keep, you know, larger. We want to keep large objects from getting into our transmission main, potentially clogging it up, creating obstructions. So it's a screen. It does what you would imagine a screen does. Water, Copac Lake. One of the, just to let you know, Washington Street, that project is closed out, and we have submitted for reimbursement. We have 100% reimbursement for the lead service line portion from Department of Health, and we have a 60% reimbursement from the WIA, which is also a Department of Health grant. So hopefully we'll see those monies relatively soon as well. As far as DPW, 'tis the season. We've been doing a lot of culvert and ditch work. This is on Worth Alley. It was pretty well beat up. So we start excavating, we clean it up, make it nice and even. And then it gets blacktop installed. And we did some improvement through the catch basins. So this is, just part of seasonal work. We have about another month to complete blacktop work before the asphalt plant closes for the season. So we're trying to get as much done as we can right now. Also, DPW did some work at the 7th Street Park, removing some asphalt there that was around where the signs used to be. These are the floats that were the subject of a special resolution back in the wintertime. These are for the river docks and the ferry slip docks. So what'll happen is we'll be taking the docks out of the water probably in another, I guess, early November is usually when we do it. And then over the course of the winter, we'll remove the old ones and install the new ones. And then everything should be fine and dandy for the installation next spring. What else do we have here? Just an update on the Ferry Street Bridge. We continue to press the grid and Amtrak to get their easements. I mean, sometimes utility easements involve, moving gas mains, serious infrastructure. In this instance, they literally have to move a couple of utility poles 10 feet and a gas service probably 10 or 15 feet. And it's just the bureaucracy. So I did run into Assembly Member Dee Dee Barrett at an award ceremony a couple of weeks ago, and she was curious about the bridge. And for those of you who don't know, she was one who got the city about $3.2 million in state transportation improvement money as a member item about 6 years ago. So I told her what we were dealing with, and her staff asked for some basic information, which I shared with them. And they had made some calls to Amtrak and National Grid. Seems to have gotten their attention. At this stage of the game, whatever it takes, we want to get it. We want to get this out to bid. It's just the longer we wait, the more costs keep going up on everything. And that's it for this report.
Rob, are you suggesting that National Grid has been vindictive about our going for the power project, the lighting project?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that at all. I just think if they find anything different or a little bit, they're just used to pulling up with their bucket trucks and bling, bling, bloom and doing this stuff. And now because it's a little inconvenient, it'll just being pissy, quite honestly. And I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. So we're going to figure something out within the next couple of days and get that addressed.
Cool. Any council members have questions? Vicky?
Yes, Tom,
Margaret, Vicky was first.
sorry.
Hi, Rob. A year or two ago, there was some discussion for conservation plan for streetlights and utilities in general. I think there was a study there too. Whatever happened with that?
I don't know if I know what you're talking about.
You're talking about the streetlight plan that I was just referring to.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so what exactly are we
waiting for?
Yeah.
Is that the NIPA plan, the NIPA project?
Yes.
Yeah, that project's gonna take, at least a year or two. The Public Service Commission, National Grid has 30 days or 60 days to do step one. The Public Service Commission has to review something, then they have to send contracts over, then there's another step, then the Public Service Commission gets in again. This process is gonna take at least a year.
Okay, and also there's some repair. I saw you're doing, I actually showed you there on 6th and State. What happened there?
6th and State. Oh, that's just there's some groundwater that keeps penetrating, and we've been chasing it for about 15 years, and so we just installed a blind drain to just carry it so it doesn't pop up and create ice. We just put a blind drain in so it'll run into that catch basin.
It looks good. I just saw you did a good job there.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Margaret.
Yes, so Rob, this is something that's been going back and forth between you and one of my constituents on the corner of First and Warren with regard to a garbage can and repositioning that garbage can. She lives right beside a deli on the corner of First and Warren. And I have talked to Chief Moore about this. Also, there are a number of homeless people. There's people using the garbage can in front of her building as a kind of base, and you removed it. But what she had actually asked was for you to move the garbage can to the facing First Street, so that the deli would have a garbage can. So when we spoke about this yesterday, you indicated that there were some potential issues with regard to electrical wiring, which I don't know if you've investigated that yet or not, but this is this is a problem. And I would like to know what you are doing about that situation. She had requested a movement of the garbage can to the street facing First. And on the other side of the street, initially you said there was an ADA issue, but there is no curb cut out there. When I spoke with you yesterday, you said there was potentially electrical issues. So I would like to have an update from you as to what the status is of moving that garbage can onto First Street so that the deli has a garbage can and there is not this degradation of the living experience of people on that corner.
That's an awfully long question. I'll see if I can keep track of it all. First of all, maybe the resident asked for it to be relocated. I know I have your email where you said to either relocate it or remove it. So I was going under one of your suggestions when we removed it. Secondly, there are several utility conflicts along Warren Street. We run into this all the time. When the garbage cans were originally put in, the posts during urban renewal, they actually installed them and then they installed the conduit afterward, and then they put the sidewalks down. So at this stage of the game, it's in a place where it's not in conflict. So we know that the power does go around many of the corners. It's fed from, because the utility poles are on the alleys, that the power that feeds these streetlights usually goes to the alley behind the building and it runs under the sidewalk. That's something that is pretty consistent with it. As far as the homeless, I'm not in the homeless business, so that one I'll punt on. I'll yield to the chief. But the reality is, the garbage cans are put out, at various locations up and down Warren Street for, the convenience of people, for the tourists and the residents. And I'm not sure, is this a new policy that people get to choose what's in front of their house? Do I get to say I want a hydrant in front of my house or I don't, or I want a street light in front of my bedroom window or I don't, or I want a garbage can in front of my house or I don't? I mean, we did go through this over the summer on Union Street where people were complaining about having a speed limit sign in front of their house. And I believe that you and I were in agreement that, the city makes these decisions based on where it's illogical and where it's necessary and where it works. So I don't know where I see how this is different. But to finish my point, I did mention to you in the earliest email that this intersection will be totally reconstructed as part of the Hudson Connects project. And that project is going out to bid within the next week or so. And at that point, that not only are we going to be redoing the underground utilities, but we're also going to be putting curb bump outs there. So it'll be more than enough space to move this appropriately as part of that project. In the interim, we didn't remove the posts. I certainly can put the garbage can back if that's a big deal. But like I said, the fact that homeless people are camping out at a garbage can, that's not a DPW thing.
So is there some reason why you cannot secure a garbage can on First Street? Like facing First Street? not on Warren, not facing Warren, but facing First Street. So the deli on the corner of First and Warren has a garbage can. Is there some practical reason why you cannot put a garbage can there?
Well, I don't care who's on the corner of First and Warren, whether there's a deli there or not. We usually just put them across from each other because the garbage truck stops at the beginning of every intersection. One guy goes to the left, the other guy goes to the right, they get the cans and they go back and forth and so you'll see that most of the garbage cans on Warren Street are, ones directly across from each other. It's just a matter of logistics. But the reality is that we know that there's conflicts with underground electricity. So, if you want, you could put it against the building, I guess. But I don't know how well that works.
Well, I guess when this issue was first raised, you indicated another reason for why you could not put the garbage can there. And then yesterday you raised the issue of underground, whatever.
Well, that's because when the issue was first raised, I would just looked at Google Earth and took a picture, just looked at it from and then the second time afterwards, I went and took a look at it.
Rob, the first issue you raised was that you couldn't put a garbage can on First because of ADA issues. And then I went down and the constituent looked and took photographs. There was absolutely no issue with regard to curb cutouts and so forth. And so we sent you evidence that that was a non-starter as an argument. So when we sent that to you, you came back and said, oh, well, we can't do that because of underground wiring. So what I would like to know is, can you give me information that says the reason you cannot put a garbage can on First, facing First, where there is no ADA issue? Can you give me evidence that you cannot do that because of underground wiring?
Sure.
And that's all I'm asking for.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect.
That's all I'm asking for.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Rob? From the public? Okay, thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Moving right along to resolutions, there are not many tonight, there will be quite a few next week. We're deep in budget season, as you know. And our Mayor Elliott has been out, and let me put in a little plug for him. He's the director of an opera that's doing tomorrow night at Hudson Hall, and then I believe Saturday night at Lincoln Center. Well, there you go. He's not just the Mayor Elliott. Okay. The first resolution, Shaheen, please, there it is. Commissioner Deeds, introduction and second, please. Ronnie and Ryan. The second resolution is a budget amendment to cover the ever-rising fuel cost expenses of the police department. Introduction and second, Ryan and Dewan. And lastly, we are authorizing the conservation advisory. Oh, you should know that a bit of good news, the conservation, Britt Zuckerman of the Conservation Advisory Council applied to National Grid of all people for a Arbor Day related grant and got it, $7,850. So this resolution authorizes the CAC to accept this no match grant award from National Grid for planting trees in the city. Ryan and Ronnie. And with that, we end the resolutions. Any old or new business from council members? Right.
So let me ask you
Yes.
about those trees.
Yes.
I was here at the BEA meeting, and you,
We financed
Financed
this-
some
it's not done
trees.
yet. Remember, everything's still in progress.
yes.
But yeah, we
So
financed
they
15
wanted an X amount, and then you went for another amount, and
Yeah.
now they're getting another 9 trees.
That's right.
So that's pretty close to their goal. what they
Exactly.
wanted.
That gets them 24.
But that will not reduce that would, I mean, whatever you guys accepted, that's gonna be it,
Maybe.
okay.
Don't you go to another round, Tom?
Yeah, there's another round.
Yeah.
So, you know, we meet again
Okay.
and make further cuts or whatever. But I doubt we'll take away what we
Would,
agreed
yeah,
to.
woods, yeah.
So we
First year
agreed, they
to get
originally
that.
asked for 25, money for 25 trees. At this stage, we cut that to 15 trees, but now with this, we'll get them back up to
To
24.
24, yeah,
So it's good news all
Amazing.
around.
okay.
Any other questions or business and, okay, I open up to the public. Does the public have anything they'd like to ask or say? I'm looking for hands. I don't see any. Okay. You know what that means.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ron. Second,
Second.
and all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?